Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online bargaining learning series. My name is Cameron Jones. I'm the recording secretary for Local 8125. We wanted to thank the hundreds of members that signed up for our previous live online bargaining series. We understand that with flight time schedules, it's important that we have this recorded for you to reference either if you want to watch it again or participate in our online learning series. With this presentation, we're going to do a little bit of introductions to get us started, and then our QP National representatives are going to take us through the core of the presentation. To start, we're going to get our land acknowledgement, and our Base VP of Calgary, Megan Gulliver, is going to read that for us.
We recognize and acknowledge the relationship that the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis across Canada have the land all Canadians live on and enjoy. Acknowledging this land helps us clear our minds, honor creation, and remember our responsibilities towards the land, its people, and our mission. Most importantly, it brings our minds together from the various individual journeys we are all on so that we can walk together for a short time. We are reminded that 634 different First Nations communities, 53 Inuit communities, and 8 Métis settlements have a unique cultural, spiritual, and environmentally sustainable connection to the land that their people and ancestors have inhabited since time immemorial. We encourage all members to learn about and regularly acknowledge this historic and current relationship that exists between the unceded land on which we live and work. We also encourage all members to consider how they can personally contribute to Canada's reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and the 94 calls to action.
Thank you, Megan. And then our Unit Vice President of WestJet Encore, Heather Crippen, is going to read our QP National Equality Statement.
Union solidarity is based on the principle that union members are equal and deserve mutual respect at all levels. Any behavior that creates conflict prevents us from working together to strengthen our union. As unionists, mutual respect, cooperation, and understanding are our goals. We should neither condone nor tolerate behavior that undermines the dignity or self-esteem of any individual or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. Discriminatory speech or conduct, which is racist, sexist, transphobic, or homophobic, hurts and thereby divides us. So too does discrimination on the basis of ability, age, class, religion, language, or ethnic origin. Sometimes discrimination takes the form of harassment. Harassment means using real or perceived powers to abuse, devalue, or humiliate. Harassment should not be treated as a joke. The uneasiness and resentment it creates are not feelings that help us grow as a union. Discrimination and harassment focus on characteristics that make us different, and they reduce the capacity to work together and share concerns such as decent wages, safe working conditions, and justice in the workplace, society, and in our union. QP's policies and practices must reflect our commitment to equality. Members, staff, and elected officers must be mindful that all persons deserve dignity, equality, and respect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather, for that. So this is our agenda for today of the variety of topics that we're going to be covering in our presentation. Before we jump into that, I think it's important that we quickly do a set of introductions as to who your Local 8125 Executive Board is. So we're going to start with our broadly elected officers. So if our President Ali Hussein wants to introduce herself.
Thanks for that, Cameron. So my name is Alia Hussein, and I am humbled to share and incredibly privileged to serve as the president of Local 8125. I'm a Calgary-based flight attendant and extremely excited about the year ahead of us. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Madam President. My name is Alex Grigoriev. I'm the Secretary Treasurer for the Local, just as excited about the upcoming year. And on to you, Cameron.
Wonderful. Thanks, Alex. As I said previously, my name is Cameron Jones, and I'm the recording secretary for Local 8125, also a Calgary-based cabin crew member. Under 8125, we also have our 3 unit vice presidents, so I'll pass it over to Brian Hasraj.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Hansraj, a Toronto-based flight attendant, and I am your WestJet Unit Vice President, formerly serving in several other roles. And I'm very excited that we are on track for bargaining and that you're all tuning in today and learning about this vital information for you all. I'm going to pass it off to our WestJet Encore Vice President.
Thanks, Brian. I am Heather Kirpin. I am the Unit Vice President for Encore. And yeah, I'll pass it to Arena. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. I'm Rena Kisvalvi. I am the Unit VP representing Sunwing Cabin Crew, and I'm a Winnipeg-based flight attendant.
Awesome. And then we also have our base VPs here today. So I will start with Megan Gulliver, our Calgary base VP.
Thank you. I'm Megan Gulliver, and I am Calgary-based flight attendant and the current Calgary base VP. And I will pass it off to Christina.
Thank you. My name is Christina Buckles. I am a Toronto-based flight attendant and the interim base VP for Toronto, Winnipeg, and Montreal.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then we do have also our base VP, Chris Brewer. He looks after Vancouver and Edmonton and is a Vancouver-based cabin crew member. However, Chris sends his regrets as he is on a well-deserved vacation right now. And then there's two other folks we have in the room here, and they are our QP National Servicing reps. So I will pass it over to Tanya to introduce herself.
Thanks, Cameron. Hello, my name is Tanya Patterson. I am one of the national reps in the 8125 assignment. I have the pleasure of working with 4 other reps. And I'm very excited to support this bargaining process and work with the bargaining committee. Airlines is where I come from, and I'm looking forward to being part of your process.
Thank you, Tanya. And then Erin, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Baker. I'm also one of the QP National reps supporting Local 8125 and looking to extend that support throughout bargaining.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, for introducing. And this is our team that will be leading Local 8125 into this exciting round of bargaining for our second collective agreement at WestJet Mainline. I'll pass it on over to Tanya now and Alia to run us through our presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Cameron. So back to the agenda. The purpose of this town hall is to take you through the start to finish bargaining process, right through from how we prepare for bargaining to when we serve our notice to bargain, reaching a tentative agreement, and sometimes challenges that may come before we're able to do that. And then there'll be a piece on the QP National Resources and the QP National Bargaining Policy. So what is collective bargaining? Collective means that workers negotiate as a group and not as individuals. Bargaining means that the group negotiates and gets a settlement according to its strength. It means that the strength in bargaining is directly related to the settlement and how the settlement will impact the workers covered by the agreement. Collective bargaining is really about bargaining for the collective, getting the best possible thing for the most amount of people. And you're going to hear numerous times as we move through these slides just how important it is to have the collectivity aspect of this. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about the members and everybody being on the same page. Individuals and collective rights were won throughout the struggle to defend and improve working conditions. When unions became legislated bodies, a balance of power was established between the employer and the union. When we go to the bargaining table, your bargaining committee is equal with the employer. This is an interesting and sometimes challenging concept to grasp because we're used to the employer being the boss. But when we're at the bargaining table, there's no boss and employee situation. It is equal playing field. The success of unions relies heavily on a collective structure. Unions find strength in unity, education, experience, and working together. Education is a major component of bargaining. This is member education, the purpose of this town hall. There will be bargaining committee education. There will be mobilization committee education and any other education that's needed throughout the process to make sure that any folks that are leading bargaining for your local are prepared, ready, and aware of all of the different pieces. the education comes from the folks that are on the committee, comes from the leadership at your local, it comes from your CUPE national resources, and the working together part is about being united. Numbers plus solidarity equals power. The numbers are you, the members. The solidarity is the unity amongst all of the members, and when you put those two together, it is a force. It equals power. Bargaining is the most important activity undertaken by any union. Every collective agreement has a management rights clause in both the Encore and the Mainline collective agreement that can be found at Article 3. Management rights allows employers to make all operational determinations except those that are amended or mitigated by the collective agreement. Bargaining transfers power from the employer to the workers and the union. And so basically what that says is every time we go to the bargaining table, it's an opportunity to chip away at management rights. It's an opportunity for us to negotiate wages, working conditions, and other assorted privileges that our members benefit from. During bargaining, the bargaining committee you elect will work to negotiate improved wages, benefits, and working conditions, and their mandate comes from you, the membership. Elliot, do you have anything that you want to add on that slide?
Just that we have a bargaining survey coming soon, and we're really excited to get out a priorities-based survey, and then of course follow that survey up with additional surveys, either by the direction of the bargaining committee or the membership, through feedback that we receive that indicates to us that we need to survey further. So what we are committed to is committed to ensuring that the membership knows, understands, and sees that our priorities are driven by their mandate.
The bargaining process can also be used to achieve the following: produce improved wording to collective agreement provisions, settle disputes that arise under the agreement, improve the relationship between the parties being the union and the employer, and strengthen the union by engaging members during the process and enforcing the agreement between rounds of bargaining. Most people think that when you go to the bargaining table, you're bargaining proposals that are only about the wages and working conditions. Sometimes there's areas of a collective agreement where something may fit better under a different article, or something needs to be worded a little bit different so that it actually captures the practice more accurately. The point here about improving the relationship between the parties, bargaining can certainly do that. It can have an opposite effect too. And in my experience, I've seen both happen, and it just depends on the climate that you're in. One thing that this leadership is looking for is certainly strengthen the union by engaging members during the process and enforcing the agreement between rounds of bargaining. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that means as we move through this presentation, but there will be a lot of member engagement through the bargaining process from the outset. Preparing for bargaining. So this is a lot of work and a lot of resources goes into preparing for bargaining. If we want to have a successful round of bargaining, it all comes down to preparation. So the first thing we do is we elect a bargaining committee, train our bargaining committee, we survey the membership on bargaining priorities, we build our bargaining proposal package, we do any kind of research that we need to do to substantiate the positions that we plan to take at the bargaining table. We build a strategic plan for bargaining, which is a fluid document, essentially a roadmap for the bargaining process that outlines a whole number of things ranging from what the priorities of the membership are to what we believe the priorities of the employer may be and what positions we will take should those proposals come to the bargaining table. The strat plan usually will have a timeline in it, among a number of other things. Also included in bargaining prep is a plan for member engagement and mobilization, because again, we can't stress enough how vital that component of bargaining is. We will have a plan for job action, which we'll talk more about. We will come and ratify proposal concepts with the membership in order to ensure we've captured the mandate. We will serve notice to bargain, and then we'll begin negotiations. When we elect a bargaining committee, we do so in accordance with the local bylaws. I'm actually going to turn this part over to Alia because there's currently some interesting pieces that are live and happening at the moment that I think it would be appropriate for your president to take you through.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity, Tanya. So electing a bargaining committee and training for the bargaining process. So a lot of work has gone into getting up and off the ground since January 21st, when Local 8125 first came to be into existence. So we took a phased approach to the bylaws, and we understood very clearly and very loudly from our respective memberships that for one, we're in consecutive bargaining years. We will start with the WestJet Mainline collective agreement, which expires in December. And of course, then we have the Encore collective agreement expiring in May, which means that will put this executive into consecutive bargaining years. So we've been strategically planning for both collective agreements. And currently, today, at time of taping, nominations are open for the bargaining committee. So thank you to the membership who participated in bylaw revisions that outlined an elections process and a bargaining committee. So that bargaining committee is currently under nominations are open, and we will go into elections. And then as soon as elections are complete, we will move right into training. That training, as per the bylaws, will be done by QP National in consultation with the union. And training for each bargaining committee member, of course, is offered through QP National Education Department and put on by the assigned national representative. So Tanya will be leading that. In addition to that, job action training will also be offered.
Awesome. Thank you. Elia already spoke a little bit about surveying the membership. Bargaining surveys will be circulated to the membership in order to determine member priorities for this round of bargaining. Survey data will then be consolidated and used to build the union's bargaining proposal package. Additional surveys may be circulated to the membership as deemed necessary by the bargaining committee. Surveys will include an area for members to expand on matters or provide additional information, and we encourage you to be as thorough as possible so that your bargaining committee has a clear mandate. I can't stress enough how important it is that everybody takes the time to commit to these surveys. And when I say commit, I mean put an appropriate amount of time aside so that you can really give each piece of the survey the appropriate amount of thought that's needed and add additional information where necessary. If you feel that something isn't captured in the survey, the reason that box is there is so that you can make any additional contributions that you feel are important. And every bit of every survey gets looked at and gets broken down so that the committee knows exactly where the priorities of the membership are. Where there's any areas that suggest ambiguity, gray area, or maybe more information is needed, that's where additional surveys, circulation of additional surveys will be contemplated by your bargaining committee for your membership. And then we build a bargaining proposal package. And so as you just heard, the priorities from the survey certainly are heavily relied upon when drafting and constructing the bargaining proposal package. But we also take input from the bargaining committee, the executive members, the executive board members. We look at grievances, we look at patterns that have arisen through the grievance process that have led to disputes. And where there's patterns, there may be proposals that are designed to correct something that doesn't work. We look at local issues that like often local issues that are reoccurring. We look at those and can formulate proposals within our package in order to address any of those issues. And then lastly, we look at other collective agreements, other airline collective agreements, other pilot collective agreements, and any other collective agreement language where we can make connections, where we can draw parallels that will support a successful round of bargaining for the members of 8125. Research. While building proposal packages, research will be done in order to compile information that will allow the bargaining committee to take strong, credible positions at the bargaining table. Among other things, we can research industry provisions on wages, benefits, and working conditions. Research is a huge component during the bargaining process from the start to the finish. It's the research department that supports the surveys, and it's the research department that will give us everything that we need in order to take positions that are going to yield something. Gone are the days in the union where you can go in and you can shout and you can pound your fist and you can make demands that may be unrealistic. When we go into bargaining, we go into bargaining educated. We go in very well researched, and we go in with information-based positions that are much more compelling than when you go in and you just yell back and forth.
Connie, can I add that?
Yes, please.
We will be going in with the same level of sophistication that the company approaches to bargaining with, and any negotiation that we have engaged with over the past few years. We want to reassure our members that we are going in well prepared.
Thank you. And then the strategic plan for bargaining, which I kind of spoke a little bit about already. Your bargaining committee will work to create our strategic plan, also known as a strat plan for bargaining. Again, it's a fluid document. It's adjusted after every bargaining prep meeting. It's adjusted after every bargaining session with the employer in order to monitor our progress at the table. It includes our priorities, a forecast of the employer priorities, any hurdles that the bargaining committee may expect may come during the bargaining process, as well as a comprehensive plan to get in front of those hurdles or address those hurdles. It includes a piece on member communication, member engagement, and member mobilization, a strategy for each of those pieces and a combined strategy. It includes training for the bargaining committee, the strike committee, the mobilization committee, as well as any other education for the membership. It'll also include cost share information that may be tied to collective bargaining. I'm going to ask Ali if you want to talk about cost shares at all. I know it comes a bit in the presentation, but maybe a good idea for you to.
We are actively capitalizing on every possible cost share that the local can participate in. Our first cost share, I won't share too many details because we're fast approaching International Flight Attendants Day, but there's a little teaser that there's a cost share involved there, and it revolves around the entire theme of bargaining and Local 8125, and the hint is right behind me in my background. Big hint right behind me in my background is that is going to become the symbolic display of unity and us knowing our worth.
That's awesome. You know what, Alia, why don't you just continue with these next couple, any of the member engagement and mobilization slides, because I know that there's a lot of great information to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Member engagement and mobilization. Member engagement and mobilization efforts are intended to instill a comprehensive understanding of the bargaining process and generate member confidence and support towards the bargaining committee as they diligently work to negotiate improvements in line with the mandate that you as the membership have given us. So the local executive committee met and kind of redesigned what is traditionally known as a mobilization committee and separately a strike committee. As a result of the unique structure that we have in the federal and, of course, cross-Canada environment, we came up with something a little bit different. It's pronounced MESC, also known as MESC, Member Engagement and Strike Committee. We kind of put it into one. That will be coming soon. As soon as the bargaining, Cameron, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the bargaining committee elections will be complete, and not shortly thereafter we will release information as it relates to the MESC committee, looking for folks to step up and engage in member engagement and strike. possible strike. Work. Next slide. The local is undergoing a cost share with QP National to work on member engagement, mobilization, education, trust, and solidarity building to direct attention and energy towards bargaining, using the bargaining process to bring members together. The union will engage with as many members as possible through in-person events, social media, and podcasts. Brian is a little disappointed because I'm still not committed to doing TikToks yet. We need to work together to be involved and build momentum towards bargaining. This will show the employer that we are ready, collectively united as we work together to secure improvements to wages, working conditions, and the bargaining table. I think it's important to note here that it's not lost on anyone how challenging the last few years have been for all units, whether it is the Sunwing unit, which is currently actively and almost close to completion of integration into the WestJet unit, or whether it's the Encore unit, or previous to that, it was the Swoop unit. This local has seen significant change, and as a union, we recognize that. And part of our member engagement and strike committee strategy is going to be as unity building, because I think it's really important for us to recognize that the only thing that stands between us and a successful collective bargaining period is going to be our members' engagement. That makes a significant difference. So everything we're doing, every action this local is going to take, it's going to show our employer that we are unified and we have the same goals and we are pulling in the same direction, regardless of the employer-created distractions. And that's exactly what they were and are, even now as we go through it, like last week. This is all created by the employer, and it's meant to divide us, it's meant to confuse us, it's meant to create distractions so that way we're not focused on the end goal, which is being appropriately compensated for our contributions to WestJet success. Next slide. Be involved. So make sure that you are a member in good standing. We recognize that we had dispensation granted to us through QP National, but that dispensation period will end December 31st. So we strongly encourage every single member, and we ask every member to check on other members when we're at work to ensure that you are a member in good standing. And if you're unsure, just fill out another application. We love to give Cameron and his team additional work. So fill out another application. He can check and confirm, and you're good to go. This year, more than ever, it's important for us to have up-to-date and accurate information on you for so many reasons. One might be including the potential of us going on strike. If we go on strike, we need to have your contact information and be able to get a hold of you, but that's details for later. We ask that you attend all bargaining-related meetings. That would include following our union social media accounts. We recognize, and part of the reason why this is recording, is that our membership is mobile and our membership is 24/7. They are out there, they're doing the hard work the flight attendants do daily. And so we're looking at creative ways of reaching you without being intrusive to your schedule, and also recognizing that a lot of our members, as a result of our current working conditions, have to pick up extra work and be working consistently. So while we're committed to looking at creative solutions to get to you, we also ask our members to participate and engage with our social media accounts and surveys. We ask that you read emails and, if need be, reach out to your bargaining committee when additional information is needed, or your base vice presidents. It's so critical that if you're not understanding something, as much as I can appreciate that we go to social media and we want to get our information from there, you must engage in the union. There's going to be a lot of information as a result of the strategic process that we're in and the regulated process that we're engaged in, where we may not be able to put something to pen and paper, but if you're on the member engagement and strategic committee, you can be involved in part of the educating of our membership, explaining the different articles of the collective agreement, the bargaining process, what's going on, the updates. Or as a member, you can be engaging with that committee and staying as up to date and informed on your working conditions. Next slide. Support your bargaining committee. Support your bargaining committee by committing to engagement throughout the bargaining process. Follow their lead with initiatives. Share information with members in the workplace and while on layovers as a mechanism for collective engagement, and encourage them to engage with others. When the membership is involved with the bargaining process and supportive of the bargaining committee, the union's strength at the bargaining table is amplified, and I cannot impress this upon our membership enough. That the message we send the employer when we are engaged is It's significant. Our employer is not only brand sensitive, which they are, they're one of the most brand sensitive airlines out there, but they're also the most sensitive towards how the flight attendant group is acting. They want to know what we're doing, they want to know what we're thinking. And when we are engaged with the union and we're saying, my union speaks for me, I support my union in improving my conditions, that message will change the dynamic in the bargaining room. I promise you. And in addition to that, the other message that's really important for us to share as an executive committee is that it's not enough for us to just do the work. We are simply part of the equation. The other part of the equation is the membership. The membership wields significant power. And so your engagement drives the power that both executive committee will have and the bargaining committee will have as we come into the room, because I can't say it enough. We are the largest working group at WestJet and with the longest touch point at WestJet and the most sensitive to brand impact. We are a walking brand. This is our turn and this is our time. And so in order for us to achieve that, we are going to need member engagement. Next slide. More supporting of the bargaining committee. When the union has a unified, as I said, when the union has a unified, strong membership, more gains can be made through the collective bargaining process. Remember, numbers plus solidarity equals power. Without the numbers or solidarity, we are powerless. One of our national reps says it best: united we bargain, divided we beg. And there couldn't be more truth to that statement. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, and thank you for that. The next step in the process is ratifying proposal concepts with the membership. This is when the bargaining committee shares what is going to the bargaining table with the membership to ensure that the committee has effectively captured the mandate of the members. When the bargaining committee finishes drafting the proposal package for bargaining, that's when that happens. There's a series of roadshows that are scheduled for presentation and ratification, likely along with another little education piece that'll be centered around the next steps of the process. And again, it's just to ensure that the committee has captured the mandate through that prep process, and that the membership is aware of what is being brought forward to the bargaining table for negotiations. That's your opportunity to bring up anything that may need to be adjusted, and they're planned and sequenced in a manner that, should any adjustment be required before going to the bargaining table, there's an ability to do that. And then serving notice to bargain. Either party can serve notice to bargain under the legislation. Often when the union serves notice to bargain to the employer, they request disclosure of information. Receipt of this disclosure allows us to take stronger and more credible positions at the table by referencing precise pieces of information provided by the employer. For example, among many other things, one thing that we will ask for is a benefit usage report. A benefit usage report will outline all areas of benefits that are used by the membership. So we'll be able to see that, for example, and not saying that this is actually the case, but just as an example, massage is the highest utilized benefit of our members. When we then look at our surveys and we see that our members want increases to massage, we can take a much stronger position at the table because we can effectively demonstrate that massage is in fact one of the higher utilized benefits. And we ask for any information from the employer that we can use at the table, whether that's statistics, whether that is information related to plans that they have coming that we may need to be aware of in order to table things that would deal with plans that they may have. There's a number of different things that we can ask for. And then we start bargaining. The bargaining committees for the employer and for the union meet. We exchange our bargaining proposal packages, and the process of collective bargaining formally begins. The duration of bargaining is always the money question. How long is bargaining going to take? Unfortunately, there's no black and white answer to that. It's going to depend on a number of different factors. It's going to depend on how many proposals are brought to the table, both in the union's package and the employer's package. It's going to depend on the complexity of content in the proposal packages. For example, it's one thing to say we want benefit increases that are this. That's easy to speak to. It's easy to say what the proposal is. But if you're talking about rewriting an entire article in the collective agreement, that could potentially take significantly more time. And we also have to consider availability of the parties and what that means. We don't have control over employer availability, and we can't always get exactly the dates that we want, which could prolong our process. The parties will continue to bargain until they reach a tentative agreement or an impasse. An impasse is when you can't get any further in the process because you are at odds and you're not going to make any more progress. A tentative agreement is a collective agreement that's tentative because it hasn't been voted on by the membership yet or ratified by the membership yet. In the event that an impasse is reached, either party may file for conciliation, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Like right now. So conciliation. So this is these numbers that you see here are sections in the Canada Labour Code that govern the bargaining process for federally legislated workers. It's important to understand that each province has legislation, but workers that are governed federally, like flight attendants, are governed under the Canada Labour Code sections. So in Section 72(1), the Minister of Labour appoints a conciliator normally within 14 days of a request. The conciliator then works with both parties for an average of 60 days to reach an agreement. The conciliator doesn't say what the deal is going to be. The conciliator works with the parties to lead them towards a settlement. In some scenarios, a conciliator may draft a recommendation, but it's incumbent on the parties to reach the agreement with the support of the conciliator. Under 89(1)D, if the parties can't reach an agreement, a 21-day cooling off period begins. During the cooling off period, the parties can issue a 72-hour strike notice to trigger a strike or a lockout. So the union would give notice of a strike, employer would give notice of a lockout. Those are very specific terms for each party. And when it says you can issue a 72-hour strike notice, you can, but it has to be within the last 72 hours of that 21-day cooling off period. There's different conciliation services for the purpose of our bargaining. It will most likely be a conciliator. It usually is a conciliator, but the minister will decide. And then there's an example here in 2024, Air Canada pilots requested federal conciliation to help them secure a new collective agreement with the airline. We have so many different examples of this in Air Transat back in 2016. We had a really rough round of bargaining and we were in federal conciliation. Alia, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
It's, as we discussed this, I guess it's really timely for us to share that Air Canada filed for conciliation yesterday. And so they entered that process yesterday, and we are watching our colleagues over at Air Canada engage in this process. And as they go through it, we're watching and learning and understanding. So it's a pivotal moment, I would suggest, in Canadian for flight attendants in Canadian aviation for bargaining years.
Absolutely. Job action. In order to commence job action, the union must have taken a successful strike vote within the 60 days preceding job action. When a union takes a strike vote, they come to the members. The members give the strike vote. In the event of a strike or lockout, either party, as previously stated, must serve 72 hours advance notice. And then when there's a legal strike position, the union may enforce work-to-rule measures. This is action that does no more than require by the collective agreement. For example, if your duty day starts at 5 o'clock, you're there at 5 o'clock. You're sticking to the black and white print in your collective agreement and not doing anything above and beyond. The other thing that a union can do when they're in a legal strike position is conduct a rolling or rotating strike, a partial labor stoppage, or a full strike, which is also known as a full shutdown. The employer, on the other hand, can lock out members or unilaterally change the terms and conditions of employment. Negotiations may continue during this period. I would go as far as to say more often than not, they do continue during this period. So work to rule is not the same as a rotating strike or a full strike. All employees work, but follow the rules exactly. Do not perform extra work or go above and beyond. As I said, union provides specific guidance on what work members will not do. So this is very key and important that members understand, because any work to rule directive will come from the bargaining committee, will come from your local. It is not on members to unilaterally decide what kind of work to rule initiatives they're going to take on. Work to rule is about collective action. It's about everybody doing the same work to rule measures. So super important to wait for guidance from the union on that. Work to rule slows productivity and demonstrates that the employer relies on the goodwill of employees to properly function. And like all other job action, it also sends a very compelling message to the employer that there's unity and that these folks are doing these things because they want to land a renewed collective agreement that is fair. A rotating strike is when not all workers strike at once, typically a series of surprise targeted strikes where groups carefully chosen for the greatest impact strike in succession, but not simultaneously. It creates confusion for the employer and operationally makes it extremely challenging to plan, which can be a very effective pressure tactic for the union. A full unit-wide strike or full shutdown is when all work stops. All productivity for the employer ceases. Employees collectively walk picket lines, and this is typically the highest point to which a strike escalates. Intermittent strike is when when all workers strike at once, but for a limited time. It can be started and stopped at irregular intervals, making it difficult for the employer to plan. And as all of the other pieces can, any of these can escalate to a full shutdown or a full strike. And I just want to say that the purpose of talking about the different pieces of job action are to educate the members so that you're aware of what possible strategies can be contemplated when we're talking about job action. It will be the bargaining committee in consultation with other bodies like your executive potentially, or your mobilization committee potentially. This will all be associated with the strategy that's laid out with the strat plan that has yet to be determined yet, but it will be communicated to the membership exactly what type of job action is going to be taken on and when and if that's going to change at different points in the cycle. So this is more on the legal framework and the steps. Section 49(1) is notice to serve. Once notice is so actually before I say that, again, either party can serve, and under the federal legislation, we can serve up to 4 months in advance of the expiration of the collective agreement, which the collective agreement expires on December 31st of this year. So up to 4 months prior to that, notice can be served. There can be benefit to serving notice early. There can also be it can also make more things challenging if you're not fully prepared to go to the bargaining table. Under provision 50, once notice has been served, unless otherwise mutually agreed upon, the parties must meet within 20 days after that notice has been given. We've already talked about 71.1. 87.3 under strike mandate, the union must hold a strike vote and receive the majority of support from its members. The strike vote is valid for 60 days. If no strike occurs within that time, a new vote is required. That's very important because that's all aligned with the strategy of the bargaining committee also. You don't want to come and get a strike vote too early because they expire. So, I mean, you could always come and get it again, but you're better off to really make the necessary contemplations and come for a strike vote when the going gets tough and you really need that card in your pocket to take back to the table. If your committee's coming to you and asking for a strike vote, support the strike vote. The strike vote needs to be in the high 90s. It needs to show that this membership is united, that they're together, that they back up the bargaining committee, that they have confidence in the work that the bargaining committee is doing. And if you give us a strike vote that is subpar, it does absolutely nothing for us. In fact, it hurts us. It hurts us. So if and when we're getting to that point, you're going to get a lot more information. But just as sort of a preliminary heads up, if your union comes to you for a strike vote, it's imperative that it's heavily supported and well supported. Period 89, if no conciliator is assigned 21-day a conciliator is going to be assigned. But in any event, if the minister decides that a conciliator will not be assigned, 21 days must still pass from once the notice of dispute was sent. If a conciliator is assigned, again, 21 days must pass after the conciliator mandate ends, which is about 60 days. It can last 60 days, but that can also vary depending on with mutual agreement between the parties. If you want it to be extended, you're right on the cusp of getting a deal. You've hit the 60 days. You need more time. If both parties agree, then you can continue. And then the 72-hour notice is governed under 87.2, 1 and 2, which we spoke about in previous slides, and that's the obligation for either party to serve the 72-hour notice before proceeding with either a strike or a lockout. Alia, do you want to, did you have anything on that one that you wanted to add? I'm sure you want to touch on the strike mandate piece.
I do, but I'll reserve some of my thoughts on that for another time. But for right now, what I did want to share with the membership, it's not uncommon, especially at WestJet. My previous experience as the former president of Local 4070, who went through 4 back-to-back bargaining cycles with the organization and watched how they navigate this particular timeline, is that notice a strike and walking out seems to happen simultaneously, and that has to do with some of the security pieces of our operations. It tends to be WestJet's practice. That's not to say it will be WestJet's practice. It tends to be practice. So I want to ensure that membership understands that the union is very aware of how the company will navigate this scenario and not to be surprised by being locked out. Our assets are also secure, are considered there's security pieces around the assets. And when I say our assets, I mean WestJet's assets, have security related pieces around that. So it's not anything personal. It can almost be procedural as we go through this, that notice strike or lockout kind of happens simultaneously. But it might not. We don't know.
Thank you. And then tentative agreement. A tentative agreement can be reached at any time during the bargaining process. Once a tentative agreement is reached between the parties, it must be ratified by both parties. So the employer will take it to their principals. We will take it to the membership. Membership will vote. It must be approved by a majority of members through a secret ballot. Both parties, again, must ratify the tentative agreement in order for negotiations to be complete and a new collective agreement to take effect. Once the collective agreement is ratified, then we work on implementation of language. And that will be as aligned with the agreement reached through the bargaining process. What that means is often through the bargaining process, you negotiate things that don't come into effect with ratification of the tentative agreement. Sometimes there's larger scale initiatives that you may negotiate a committee and lay out a terms of reference for that committee that they will conduct work that will lead somewhere. You'll negotiate a monetary value that will be applied to that work. You could negotiate a number of other things, and you'll put a date of implementation. My experience with airline bargaining is such that there's actually an implementation timeline, because there's different things that are going to come into effect at certain times, and then a significant amount of work is put into meeting the dates that are outlined in that implementation timeline. And it's not uncommon to see in other sectors as well. At the end of the day, whatever we have to do to not leave one dime on that table, if that means that things need to be staggered, if that means that we need to be strategic in how we structure things, all those considerations will be made by your bargaining committee, and they're all made in an effort to get as much as possible for the members, as many improvements, as many privileges as possible for the members. And there's a number of different ways we're able to do that. And then when we talk about the CUPE national resources that are available to us, we have a great amount of resources that can support the bargaining process. I love that servicing reps are your first ones there. We certainly do our best to support the bargaining process at every step of the way. Research we already spoke about. They research the research reps will help with survey construction, circulation, consolidation of data. They'll help with any other research initiatives that we may need through the bargaining process to support our positions. Communication representatives help us with building cost shares and with any messaging, whether it be messaging that if we need to send messaging out to our members and we want to have a communication lens on it. If we are in a job action situation and we are going to be in the media, the comms reps can support us with any of that work. The education department will work with us to put together the necessary education components for the bargaining committee, mobilization committee, strike committee, and they will help us adapt the training as much that they can while working within their capacity. We have an occupational health and safety department that can be available if and when we need them, if we have health and safety proposals that we're bringing to the bargaining table. And we have a legal department that we can turn to for anything that may need a legal response. We can also turn to legal for support if and when we find ourselves at or approaching a job action situation and wanting to make sure that we are doing everything in strict accordance with the legal framework as required. We also have a job evaluation department, which provides support when new classifications are being contemplated. So for example, if there's a new flight attendant classification and there's a different compensation structure, a different series of responsibilities or tasks, that job evaluation department can take the information that we provide them and then make an assessment as to what an appropriate level of compensation should be for the tasks that are expected of the folks filling those roles. So that pretty much ties up what the CUPE national resources are for the bargaining process. And we'll use them as we move through. And then there's a CUPE national bargaining policy. And the CUPE national bargaining policy is a policy that originally came to be at a national convention, and it outlined a number of different points that must be that we must remain in accordance with. Every local must remain in accordance with when they go to the table. And there are a lot. It's quite a comprehensive document. I think it's 16 or 17 pages. The biggest piece for me, and that's what you see here, is that CUPE doesn't negotiate concessions. CUPE does not negotiate two-tier agreements. And we have no problem telling your employer that right on the very first day of bargaining. This is a quote here from the CUPE National President, Mark Hancock, that says, "We must resist concessions, two-tier contract provisions, and precarious work. If a contract provision is not good enough for our current members, it's not good enough for the next generation of workers." And that's really what that's all about. A two-tier agreement means that one group of workers with seniority gets something where someone else with no seniority doesn't get it, or some variation of that. There's varying levels of two-tiering. We want none of it. We'll take none of it. So I think that's, yeah, I think we're off to, for those of you that made it this far, thank you for sticking with us. That concludes our presentation. We're now going to open it up for question and answers, and I'm going to turn it back to my friend Cameron. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanya and Alia, for taking us through that presentation. I know that there was a lot of good information that was presented, and it was a wholesome overview of kind of what the bargaining process is and what our membership can expect to experience as we move through the bargaining process. In our live Q&As, we were taking notes as to some of the commonly asked questions and some of the broader questions that we wanted to compile for folks that are watching at home today. And so I think one really good question to start off with is, what is the local doing to prepare for bargaining, and where are we at in the process? And I don't know, Alia, if you want to give us kind of a broad overview of where we're at in the bargaining process and the steps that we're taking to ensure that we are prepared to go through the entire process that was just presented on.
Great question, Cameron. So let's rewind the clock back to January 21st when this local came into inception. I share this in integration classes when I meet with our integration members, but for those of you who, or 1,000 of you who haven't experienced that, what I share is when back in January when we became a new local, while the merger for the company side may have ended, the merger on the union side began. So a significant amount of work began as we had the two former boards, an executive committee, and an insane amount of work ahead, including bylaws that didn't indicate or didn't outline a bargaining committee, member engagement and strike committee, future representation, because while we're driving towards bargaining, we are also stabilizing the local. So there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes. And so one of the local executive committee met and established our priorities. And our first priority was to establish bylaws that would allow us to set up the bargaining committee. Our next priority was, once the bargaining committee set up, we would also roll out the member engagement and strike committee. So that's where we're at so far in the process. And then behind the scenes, we have been reviewing and interviewing. So I'll start with the interviewing. We have met and interviewed every single group inside of WestJet that has bargained against the organization for what that experience was like, and I'll leave that conversation there, but we believed it was very important that the executive committee be aware of what we are going to be engaging in. Following that, we also did a wholesome review with our CUPE national reps of what bargaining looks like in other areas and what bargaining committees look like in other areas, as well as within the airline division itself, the various models and structures, and that's how we came to forming the current bargaining committee. It's important to recognize that the bargaining committee composition can change, and that is always at the direction of the members. This bargaining committee composition right now is for this year under these very unique set of circumstances, but that's not to say it can't change. This is entirely membership driven. And ultimately the membership will decide this, but we are in a very, very unique space because we are doing our absolute best as a local, working 24/7 to go through our own integration, our own merger internally. And then on top of that, keep pace with and alignment with expiring collective agreements, just having gone through 2 consecutive mergers, first with the business closure of Swoop and then the Sunwing integration. So that's kind of like a broad overview of where we're at with bargaining and as far as the bargaining process is concerned. We're really excited because we're working very closely with CUPE. We've retained external resources to support us beyond just CUPE because we want to make sure we are in the best position to negotiate one of the best collective agreements, ideally even within the airline division. Does that
Wonderful.
answer?
I think so. That was a great answer as to where we're at. And like you said, there's lots of work that's going on behind the scenes to ensure that we are completely set up and as best prepared as possible as we go into this round of bargaining. Another question that we got quite often, or something that I hear when I interact with flight attendants, is so we often hear the word solidarity or unity. And so what does that mean? Why is it so important? And what unity building actions can our members take to build that solidarity and unity as we go into bargaining?
I love this question because honestly, as much as sometimes I hear from the membership that they feel like this is union driven or executive driven and executive led, this is really member driven, member led. And I will turn this over to each respective unit VP to share their thoughts on their respective units as we go through this on the matter of unity. But in consultation with the executive committee, we opened up the member engagement and strike committee, for example, to all members, including WestJet Encore, because in a conversation with Heather, we were having that discussion about the importance of gatekeeping Encore paced with WestJet as we go through this, because there's the potential that we might still be in bargaining for WestJet Mainline as we serve notice to bargain for Encore. Like, there's a high potential for this. And I won't take too much away because I've done a lot of the talking, so I do want to give the opportunity to the unit VPs to speak, but the membership engagement is everything. Wearing your union pin, and that's another hint I'll give everyone of what's to come. Wearing your union pin. If you pay attention to the Air Canada Components campaign, they are talking about wearing your union pin. Wear your union pin. That is the signal to show unity, that we are here for our collective agreement. Recognize that as a membership, we have a tendency to be divided, but the reality here is that at the end of the day, this bargaining is about, at a very personal level, your personal ability to pay your bills and your working conditions, your exhaustion levels. And so really, when you're wearing your pin and you're letting your union speak for you, what you're saying is that I recognize my value, I recognize we need change, and I want it, and I want it now. But with that said, I'll turn it over to the unit VPs, whoever wants to go first, what your thoughts are on that question. And Cameron, because I've done a lot of blah, blah, you might want to repeat the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I can repeat it just one more time. So we often hear the word unity or solidarity. What does it mean? Why is it so important? And what unity building actions can I take as a member? And I see, Rena, I see you have your microphone on. So if you want to start us off.
I will. Thanks, Cam. I did come from a local who in 2021, we went through bargaining, and the employer did serve us as well. They went straight to conciliation. So the entire process was a conciliated process. And what I can say is when it comes to unity, it's super important for all of our members to recognize that participation is key. And there's a couple of really key ways that you can participate. And we've gone over, I mean, both Tanya and Alia and Cam have spoken to it, but the surveys, participating in the surveys with honest responses is really, really important to acknowledge. Make sure that you're connected with us as a local. One of the ways to do that is through the website. Cam, you spent an extraordinary amount of time on the website. It's fantastic. It's super member friendly. Ensure that your personal email is up to date with the local. I think, Alia, you did reference the fact that we're going to have to contact you. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is through your personal email. We do refrain from using our WestJet.com emails. Our contact lists are specific to our members' personal emails. So that's super key. Participate in the meetings. I know that it's not easy to participate in the membership meetings, whether they're general membership meetings or special membership meetings, but it's super important to also participate by reviewing the recording, like the one that we're doing here today. So those are just the couple of the ways that I believe participation and creating solidarity and unity. Those are some of the ways that you can do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Rena. Brian, do you want me to repeat the question or are you good?
All good. When it comes to unity and solidarity and what we can do as individual members, it's showing up. What connects all of us is the fact that we all wear the same uniform now. It doesn't matter where we may have come from, how we may have entered the unit, but what matters is that we all wear the same uniform, we all fly in the sky together, and we have each other's back. The one crew concept begins with each of us individually. So, taking that time to look at what do I like and what do I not like. Start a note in your phone now. So when that bargaining survey comes out, and you're taking the time to answer those questions at the very end when we're asking you what else do you have to share with us, you can very quickly copy and paste from the information that you've taken the time to build. It's about showing up to our membership meetings. It's about communicating with us. It's about participating in the bargaining committee elections. We are going to be electing the individuals that will lead us at the table. And while they will work using the mandate that we all provide them with, using the bargaining survey, it's about electing individuals that are going to be dedicated, showing up, and committed to the cause, that will be ready to have difficult conversations with individual members, just like the executives have had at times in our base VPs. So showing up just like we did with the executive elections, we had a great turnout. We need to keep that momentum. We need to continue showing the employer that we are an engaged working group, and we're not just engaged when we're in the aircraft. We are in unprecedented times, which is constantly being thrown at folks. So when we come off of a pandemic, we've gone through several integrations, and we now looking at global politics and the way that the landscape is changing. But we're also in a time that employers understand the workforce is standing up and speaking out for what is right. And what we need to do is demand the respect that we deserve. And that starts in our galleys, that starts in the aisle, and that starts when we're preparing to report for duty and when we're logging off at the end of the day as well. So please engage, participate. And when you don't know, just ask. Come to the executives, come to the bargaining committee and ask directly. Don't rely on the Facebook comments, but participate and ask. And all I can say is if you don't know who to ask, look at the WestJet component website and look at the contact form. Without further ado, I'll pass it off to my lovely colleague, Heather.
Actually, yeah, just Heather, just before you start, and I wanted to ask this question as I think they kind of line up really nicely, relating to solidarity and unity. But if you want to touch on this piece too, maybe, but how Encore members can be involved or support the bargaining for WestJet Mainline, but then also as WestJet Mainline cabin crew, when WestJet Encore goes to bargaining, just after us, or potentially while we're still in bargaining at Mainline, how we can also support the Encore effort. Sorry to spring that one on you, but I think it's just a good question that kind of links the two together.
Yeah, no, I actually was gonna include that too. I'd say where people can start too is making sure you're getting your communications and reading them. And if you don't have communications, reach out to your base VP or your unit vice presidents, and we can help get that set up. Or your recording secretary, wonderful Cameron. And you know, like I said, just check to make sure you're getting those. Take part in the surveys, of course, like everyone has said. And when you're saying that you don't like something, don't just say I don't like something. Have a reason of like why you don't like it or what you'd like to see changed about it too. Like bring ideas. Don't just have that negative part of it. One thing I will say is that we do need to take care of each other and we need to show up for each other. So, like you said, Encore needs to show up for Mainline, and Mainline needs to show up for Encore, and we need to not let issues divide us and start coming together and showing that solidarity that way as well. Yeah, and just supporting each other on the line, or you know, if we do strike or anything like that. Like those are really important things for us to show the company that we stand together, and when we show the company we stand together, we are going to be that much stronger.
If I may, Cameron, just to like add on to what Heather spoke about when we like speak to our Encore brothers and sisters, your support for the WestJet unit as we're at bargaining in July of next year, you'll also be at the table. So by joining and supporting, we have strengthened numbers. WestJet Encore is WestJet, and your support is vital now, just as it will be as vital for the WestJet unit members to show up when Encore's at the table. So there's no.
Awesome. Thank you for that to our unit VPs. Okay, so we have one more question here, and this is one that we hear quite often, but how is the membership going to be able to provide feedback on our working conditions and what they want to see changed?
How does a member not provide feedback currently? But with that shared, I want to thank everyone who has provided feedback thus far. I receive several emails a day on this matter and have been receiving them for a few years now. So I can't thank the members enough. But as far as immediately or in the near future, it's going to be through the bargaining survey, or you can also, because there's an open text box in the bargaining survey. So all those notes in your notes section of your iPhone or wherever it is that you're keeping them, please put that into that section, because our researcher will be going through that and sharing it with the bargaining committee. In addition, once you know who the bargaining committee is, you're welcome to reach out to your bargaining committee members. You're also welcome to reach out to your base vice presidents, your unit vice presidents, your recording secretary, your secretary treasurer, or your president. We have a comprehensive contact form, and we do want to hear from you. Again, something I'm constantly sharing these days as we're moving about engaging with our membership is that one of the things that is a well-known fact, well-established fact, is that flight attendants know the weakness in the language. Flight attendants can easily identify where the area of opportunity exists. We are our own SMEs to our own language. So there are those of you who have been through some circumstance within the WestJet operations that understand that this language and why it doesn't work. It may never have come to the union. So please recognize that there isn't. Almost all information is valuable information. Almost all experiences are valuable experiences, and we're going to want to review everything. Currently, Brian has one of the longest standing, second only to Alex, longest standing serving members of WestJet representation, not necessarily local representation, is that Brian has a really comprehensive list that we've been reviewing. And it goes back to like the iterations of the past four-ish years, where we were dealing with, what was that? Metering in Toronto, for example, lest we forget, metering in Toronto, lest we forget. We went through March of 2023 is when March of 2024, I think, is the last, like all of our recalls were complete of every member coming back after COVID layoffs. And then, of course, we've gone through every iteration and action, and we've also experienced two, not one, but two mergers. So as we review all this information, you might have experienced something. Please don't think for a second that, oh, it doesn't matter because it was only me. There might be something incredibly valuable in there. So please take the time, fill out the bargaining survey, or engage with us. And under the Member Engagement and Strike Committee, of course, starts as a Member Engagement Committee, is that engage with those folks, because they will also be providing live and real-time feedback to the bargaining committee as the bargaining committee is moving forward. So there's going to be tons of opportunity to engage, because we heard overwhelmingly previously that the membership felt that there wasn't enough engagement. So this executive committee is dedicated to that we may at times annoyingly ask you question after question, survey after survey, as we work to drill down what it is we're actually looking for. So it's vital. And with that, I will pass it over to Cameron Jones.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alia, and to the rest of the executive committee and our QP national representatives for taking us through this presentation. At this point, we're going to wrap it up. As was mentioned a couple times, we have our member forms that are available on our website. You can find all those at wjcomponent.ca under the member form section, where you can sign up for our emails. You can update your information as well as apply to be a member in good standing. We know that the membership is likely going to have more questions, which is awesome. If you do have more questions, please go to our website as well. You can submit a form by contacting either your base VP or one of your unit vice presidents at wjcomponent.ca/contact. We want to thank the membership for making it this far in this recording and taking the time to get educated on our bargaining process. As we know, knowledge is power, and that is going to get our membership in the best position as we enter this round of negotiations. So thank you very much for attending, and we're looking forward to seeing you at another one of these online learning series or one of our member mobilization events coming up in the near future. Bye, everyone.